You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone. This is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville Nate and James Bonneville. We are here brought to you by National Streaming Sports and BetUs.com, coming at you live with another college football weekend. Week number 5 is in the books, and we are here to talk about it. James, how are you doing, buddy?
Freaking fun night. Holy crap. I'm like, I need a nap. I need to take a nap from my sleep from last night. That was freaking so crazy. My God.
Yeah, I mean, it was a full slate of college football games. We had some marquee matchups. We had some pretty good games on some games that maybe we didn't think would be as close as they were. We had some pretty terrifying endings of the games, but I think we need to talk first, of course, about 2 versus 4, and that would be Georgia versus Alabama. This was in Tuscaloosa. The Crimson Tide were favored to lose at home. I don't know if that's the Nick Saban effect with him being gone, and they just thought, hey, this isn't Nick Saban coaching anymore. I don't know, but I really feel like Alabama being an underdog pissed them off, and they came out hot, and they got up to a 28-0 lead, and then Georgia came roaring back. First off, James, do you feel like being underdogs helped Bama at all? And how did they get up 28-0, and then how did they blow that lead? I think that was somewhat confusing for folks.
Something. I'd like to know what film Georgia was watching, because I sat there the entire first half wondering, what the hell are you doing? They were blitzing. It's as if they thought that their biggest vulnerability was Alabama running between the tackles. I mean, have you seen Jalen Milroe? Yeah. I mean, the speed's real, and all they did was pick on him on the corners constantly. I mean, absolutely constantly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that the running game, like the running backs, are solid between Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. I mean, they're solid. But
are they though?
I mean, are you going to win a national championship on their back like Derrick Henry? No. But I mean, honestly, though, that offense is run through Jalen Milroe, and he's going to pick you on the corners. He's going to do a really good job at that. And not only that, I thought Alabama's tackles in that first half and their receivers did a hell of a job allowing Milroe to get that edge. But more importantly, from a passing side, I mean, they were allowing Ryan Williams to get wide freaking open. I mean, why are you not bracketing the hell out of him from the jump? I mean, it's if you don't know Ryan Williams is that good of a receiver, you're living under a rock.
Yeah, no, I would double him. I mean, he had 6 catches for 177 yards. He was averaging 30 yards per reception. That can't be. You can't allow someone to get 30 yards every time they touch the football at the receiver position. And me, I was on the Jalen Milroe bandwagon before anyone else was, and was certainly impressed with him. The first game I saw him, I was like, this guy's going to be legit. Then they decided to bench him and tried the other guys, and we're like, whoa, shit, yeah, he is the best player we have. And now, he's the Heisman Trophy favorite. My only concern is, he throws the ball. He's 27 of 33 for 374 yards passing. He had the 1 interception, but had 2 touchdowns. Then he was 16 carries for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. All that is fantastic, and I love it. He was amazing. He's the reason that they won the game, but I don't really like him carrying the ball 16 times. I mean, you're going to have to play, 15 games to win a national championship? You want your quarterback carrying the ball 20 times a game, James?
Yeah, that's my fear factor too. I mean, it's that the problem we have with the NIL world or the transfer portal world is depth. And if he goes down, the fall off is massive. I mean, I mean, and granted, anybody who this is a Heisman Trophy quarterback, except maybe, I don't know, Texas, but Ty Simpson's their backup. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ty Simpson's solid quarterback. Are you going to rely on him to win a national championship?
No,
probably not.
No,
I mean,
there's no way they're gonna. There's no way they can replace the production of Jalen Milroe going down. I mean, that's just not possible. And they're in a world of hurt if he gets injured. And that's my only concern with this Bama team, because let me tell you this, Kalen DeBoer is doing a masterful job. I mean, you got the whole fan base, you got the whole world ready to jump on you. I mean, if they had lost this game last night, it would have been, pandemonium from their fan base, especially when Nick Saban's, in the stadium at the games with the pregame show and all this crap and analyzing the game. I think he's doing a pretty good job of separating himself from the university and trying to stay away from it. But the aura of Nick Saban is always going to be there. And it's certainly going to be there when, he just left. And I feel like the weight of the world is on this guy's shoulders, and they're 4-0. And, I feel like the turning point was in that South Florida game. Things were not going well. Things were not looking good. And at some point, he pulled them over and was like, come on, guys, let's get this together. And since that point, the fourth quarter of that USF game, they went nuts, and it really hasn't stopped since. What do you think about the job Kalen DeBoer has done so far? And what is the ceiling of this Bama team? I mean, are they your favorites to win the title now?
I still think it's early to go that far quite yet. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot after you got up 30-7 at the half, I mean, let's be honest, this was a tale of 3 games. The first half was all Alabama. The second half, Georgia played pretty goddamn well. I mean, Let's be honest, they did not lay down. And I think that's what Alabama was expecting, is that Georgia was just going to lay there and it was just going to milk the game away. I mean, Carson Beck, was this a good game for him by any stretch of the imagination? No, but he kept digging and digging. And on paper, Georgia's got a better personnel package than Bama does. But this is the first time I've ever seen, especially in that first half, Alabama and Kalen DeBoer completely outcoached Kirby Smart. Like, I mean, when they were going 5 wide with Milroe in shotgun, Georgia didn't know what to do. Jalen Walker was confused as all hell, unsure where to drop in coverage, to blitz. He didn't know where he was going to go because, let's be honest, look at how many options you got. But granted, you look at Alabama, it's not like they've got like oodles and oodles of great receivers like you did during the Saban era when they had, when you had Smith and, I mean, you had that whole crew of guys. But they were just confused completely in this game. And Kirby Smart got out coached. And if it wasn't for Ryan Williams and Jalen Milroe, they could have won that game, in all honesty, the way they came back in the second half.
They did. And, I thought in the beginning of the game that Carson Beck was still possibly banged up.
I think so, too.
I didn't think he looked very good at all. He looked like he was hurt. He looked like he was confused. I was concerned about where this game was going, especially when it was 28-0, whatever, 30-something to 31-7, whatever the score was. I was concerned about the Bulldogs and about their quarterback, and the way they pulled it together and came back in the second half really impressed me. I mean, they lost this game. A lot of things to look at and, work on, lots of tape to watch and review, obviously. But I'm not off of the Georgia Bulldogs yet. I mean, the way they were on the road in Tuscaloosa, playing a tough tough opponent, and this is 2 games now that they almost came back and won.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they didn't win this one, but the Kentucky game they were losing, they came back and found a way to win that game, and the resiliency of this Bulldogs team so far has impressed me. Where are you at this point with Georgia, and what do they do now after losing this one, losing a tough one in Alabama?
Well, I mean, now you get to go play Auburn, which they're going to curb stomp to nobody's end. If I was Kirby Smart, the second you're up by 14-21, get Gunnar Stockton in, get Jaden Rashada in, give them some playing time, because the more playing time they have, the better off you're going to be. That this team is going to rely on its defense. I mean, you look at their front 3 with Williams, Stackhouse, and Brinson, and then their 2 Mikes with Munden and Walker. I mean, that's a really good strength up the middle. But they got to create better depth. And receiver, I mean, Lavette and Arian Smith are so fast, but you cannot count on them to catch everything. They just do not have great hands. They don't run great routes. They're just burners. They got to find that guy underneath, like a Lad McConkey, that Brock Bowers were. They don't have that guy, and they need to find him sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree. They don't have that kind of breakout guy that they can go to, when they absolutely need it. Yeah. But I like this team, and I like the way that they do not quit no matter what is going on. And I think, playing games like this is just going to help them going forward. And I'm not concerned about them making the playoff and competing for the national championship still at this point.
They may go back to 6 in the rankings, but they're still, I view them as one of the 4 semifinalists.
I do too. And until I see otherwise, I think they're going to be right there with it.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next game to talk about, I do want to mention, I don't know if you recall, but in the preseason, there's a reason why I think the preseason poll is bullshit and an absolute joke, because you haven't seen these teams play. You don't know what they're going to look like. I think an excellent example of that is the Florida State Seminoles, who were preseason number 10. And they got beat yesterday again to SMU 42-16, boss. What the hell's going on in Tallahassee? I mean, is Norvell going to get fired? I mean, I didn't think so until I saw this game last night, and losing to SMU 42-16, bro. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't think so, because that buyout is too massive. And Florida State just does not have that kind of money. I mean, they don't have A&M money. But I mean, once again, and I'm not going to lie, we have seen this story before in preseason rankings. I mean, for how many years have we heard Texas is back? How about Miami? How about Nebraska? I can name you a ton of schools where they just want to remember them from a time period where they were really good and that they're back. Guess what? Florida State, you can bring all the transfers in you want, but if they don't work, the biggest problem you've had has been the development and recruiting of your own players. Name me one player in the Norvell era that they have developed who's a stud. You can't, because there are none.
No, every good player they've had, they've brought in.
Yeah.
And, plugged and played. And this year, the plug and play did not work. And it's embarrassing. And I don't know how. I mean, who are they going to beat is what I'm looking at the point. I mean, if they're getting curb stomped, giving up 42 points to SMU, I don't know who they're going to beat. I mean, I just have no clue.
I mean, Florida?
Maybe.
I mean, this is not – I mean, I went from thinking this is a bowl team even after the Georgia Tech loss, after the Boston College loss, to this. I think they've got a locker room problem right now.
Yeah, I think they've quit.
Yeah.
I think they've quit. And I think at this point, you've got to take DJ Ukulele out and put somebody else in. I mean, he was horrible yesterday. And
Rock Glenn? Why not?
I I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't care. I do not care.
Grant, I will say he's not complete. He is not 100% the problem. Is he a problem? No. Absolutely.
He was a problem yesterday when he was throwing pick sixes to SMU.
Hey, at least they were touchdown passes. I mean,
I wonder if he counted that as a touchdown.
He probably did. I mean, honestly, you look at that receiving core. I mean, Johnny Wilson, incredible athlete, but had some of the worst hands. Still in the NFL. This is a downgrade from Johnny Wilson. Like, how can you have worse hands than that? Like, you could be Carl freaking Lewis or Ben Johnson or Usain Bolt speed. If you can't catch, you're freaking worthless as a receiver.
Yeah. And, we talk about Ryan Day's record against Michigan all the time. Before we move on, I think we have to mention that Kirby Smart is 1-6 versus Alabama. And the one victory was when Jamison Williams tore his ACL. You got to mention it. I mean,
granted,
that's kind of a problem.
I will say Georgia dominated that game. Like, you can't. That's a game where Georgia really dominated. But I mean, just the same, you look at the record of Kalen DeBoer. I mean, Kalen DeBoer's record against they named off 3 coaches in the SEC, and it was like, holy crap, this guy's beating people. Like,
I'm just saying, he's 1-6 versus Bama. That's not good because he's gonna have to play them again more than likely.
Yeah,
that's not a good record for Kirby Smart. So just wanted to throw that out there. Speaking of coaches, Lane Kiffin and his Ole Miss Rebels, most talented team this guy's ever had down in the Grove since he got to Ole Miss. Things were rolling pretty smoothly. Jackson Dart was a Heisman Trophy candidate. Yesterday, they ran into the Kentucky Wildcats at home and lost 20-17. Close game. But, I mean, this is still the same. I know Kentucky played Georgia tough, but they lost. But they played them tough. But the week before that, they got pistol whipped by the South Carolina Gamecocks 31-6. Now they go into Oxford and beat Ole Miss 20-17. Please help me with this Kentucky team. I mean, explain this to me because I don't understand how you can go from losing to South Carolina 31-6 to beating Ole Miss in Oxford. I mean, how does that even happen?
Well, I think we should first stop talking about Kentucky because, I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky. Are they going to have an outstanding, like, fully depth team? No, but their identity is kicking your ass at the line of scrimmage is what they did yesterday. I mean, Brock Vandagriff isn't the quarterback everybody thought he was, and now you understand why Carson Beck started at Georgia. I mean, solid quarterback, deserves to play college football, but he ain't Carson Beck. What shocks me is, as well as Ole Miss looked in the transfer portal, bringing some really high-profile names, their line of scrimmage play looks like every other freaking year. And literally, they played like horse shit and soft. And, I mean, unless the entire offense is going to go through Trey Harris, if Trey Harris goes down, man, they're in a world of hurt. But I think everybody was so high on Ole Miss this year because of their schedule. Their best win is against Wake Forest, who lost to Louisiana. Yeah, not the Tigers, the Ragin' Cajuns yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at their schedule on the way out. I mean, now you got to stay at South Carolina. That may be a game. At LSU, that may be a game, unless their line of scrimmage play gets better. I mean,
I'm not sold that they're going to beat anybody easily on the way out here. I mean, they're 4-1 right now. After this game, yesterday losing to Kentucky at home, like you said, traveling to South Carolina, not an easy place to play.
No.
LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, and then Mississippi State sucks, but showed signs of life yesterday. I don't think any of those games are a given victory for Ole Miss. Do you?
No. Honestly, if they make the playoff, if they cobble together a schedule, and let's say they go 10-2, all right? I don't care who they play; they're going to lose in the first round.
I would agree with that.
I mean,
I'm not high on them after yesterday.
I would take Boise against them. Boise.
I think they're a little bit overrated.
Yeah,
because they're an SEC team. I mean, if they were in the ACC, they wouldn't have been ranked anywhere close to as high as they were.
I mean, them and Mizzou. Literally, them and Mizzou are literally the same team. They should be better, but they're not. Yeah. They're just not.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you there. You can be a great team on paper, but that doesn't mean you're good. What matters is what you look like out on the field.
Outside of Trey Harris, 11 for 176 in a touchdown. What did they have? Nothing. They were absolutely nothing. And it's not like Kentucky is this offensive juggernaut. It's old school slobberknocker football, and they won the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I give Coach Stoops a lot of credit here because let's just be honest. After the South Carolina game and that close loss to Georgia, this team could have imploded. Very easily and just been like, shit, we've lost 2 games. We're done. We've got to go to Ole Miss now, who's ranked number 6. They read the articles. They know that they're underdogs. This team could have gone very south very quickly. And the fact that Stoops had these guys ready to play, had an excellent game plan, and defensively played a tremendous game. I give a lot of credit to Coach Stoops and going in and beating a number 6 ranked Ole Miss team on the road. I like what he had going yesterday.
Well, I mean, even more so if Maxwell Harrison played yesterday. Their number 1 corner, 2nd team All SEC last year. I think Kentucky beats them probably by 2 touchdowns. It's not like Kentucky's got this fucking oodles of depth in Lexington. They don't. They just don't. I mean, it was. If I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm seriously looking in the mirror wondering what the hell to do. Because, you beat up the Sisters Marys of the deaf, dumb, and blind. Way to go.
Congrats.
Now you play the team with a pulse, and you lose at home for a homecoming. You're going to get – I mean, they were too high at 6.
Yeah, I think so.
Now I think 15. I'd put them back to 15, and quite frankly, I think that's high.
I agree. I would drop them out of the top 15. I mean, 15, I guess you can put them there, but this was a bad loss. I mean, they didn't. Yeah. This wasn't like a game that got away from or anything. I mean, Kentucky went toe to toe with them and just beat them physically, and that concerns me moving forward, especially after we just went through that schedule. Speaking of getting beat up, Cam Rising. Does this guy ever play football? Because yesterday he gave way to Zach Wilson's brother, is how I refer to Isaiah Wilson. And let's just be honest, Utah is not the 10th ranked team in the country without Cam Rising playing quarterback. I mean, they're just not, and he never plays. So say this team is not, a top 10 team because I just have a hard time believing he's ever going to play again, because last year he sat out the entire season, and this year he's been unavailable multiple times, and they're just not good. I mean, this is 4 interceptions in the last 2 games by Isaiah Wilson. I liked the Arizona defense. Arizona seemed to be reinvigorated after, they lost a tough one. Fafita obviously looked better. The defense of Arizona, Tay Brown, the linebacker, had a sack, had 7 or 8 solo tackles. He was all over the field. Talk to me about Arizona bouncing back in a big way and knocking off Utah. What did you think about this game, and where are these 2 teams at now?
I think it was more impressive that the Arizona win into Utah and won in Utah. Winning in Salt Lake City is very tough. But Fafita, I mean, experienced quarterback, but the defense really showed out. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at Utah and I'm like, usually you don't see Willingham get out coached. I don't understand their game plan going into this game. Like, they tried to be this wide open team. I mean, 20 for 40 for 280. I mean, you're going deep quite a bit. I mean, granted, he is the Cougar Hunter's brother, and the Cougar Hunter like to go deep quite a bit. But you got to get some momentum. I mean, where's the short and intermediary passing game? Keep your defense off the field, and it just seemed like they didn't do that. I mean, 20 for 40 with 2 interceptions?
It's a joke.
That's a joke. I'm sorry. You're not helping your team. You're hurting it.
When you got Micah Bernard going for 6 yards a carry, run the football and do play action. You don't need your backup freshman quarterback throwing the ball 40 times.
Yes.
It's a joke.
Their identity is not wide open. Scott Mitchell has not played at Utah in 40 years. This is not a wide open team. This is a ground and pound team. This is a bar fight team, and they've been that way for many years, decades. And now they try to become BYU and, throw the ball all over the place. I mean, yeah, I know they're in Utah, but what the hell was that? I mean, I used to have very high hopes on Utah. Now I walk out of this game, I'm like, Cam Rising better get healed quick or find Jesus to heal him, because without him, their chances of making the playoffs are 0.
Yeah, no, I'm not feeling as good about them anymore. Even if he had played yesterday, I think the game is closer, but I don't know. I'm not sure what that game plan was. And this is a coach that we both respect quite a bit and have a ton of faith in. Yeah, no, I love
more with less.
I agree. And he's been there, since 2004. This guy's been at the helm for 20 years. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and act like I know more about football than Coach Whittingham, but I just had a problem with the game plan yesterday. I don't understand why you're trying to throw the ball 40 times with a freshman quarterback who can't throw it to his own team. This was a confusing game, to say the least. Endings. We talked about some miraculous endings. What did you think about the Virginia Tech boys getting screwed, I guess I would say, on the last play of the game? I mean, Virginia Tech showed me a lot by the way they played on Friday night. I know this was a Friday night game, so we're going back a little bit here, but Virginia Tech has struggled, especially they lost to Vanderbilt, and I pretty much wrote them off and considered their season a wash. But they weren't ready to quit, and they gave Miami all they wanted. What did you think about Virginia Tech, their performance against the Canes, and also what about the ending, James? What was your reaction to that?
That was utterly shameful. Like, that ranks up there with the Miami Duke kick return about a decade ago in how bad of refereeing that was. I mean, I rewatched that play a billion times, and I'm like, how in the world did they call that incomplete? The guy is out of bounds. The defender was out of bounds, ripping at the ball. He was still in bounds. That just negates the whole thing. Why is as well as Virginia Tech played to get screwed like that? I feel bad for him. But at the same time, Cam Ward played one hell of a game when they were constantly down, just kept fighting back and fighting back and fighting back. I'm shocked the running game wasn't a bigger factor in that. But Cam Ward was, with his arm and his legs, really helped out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he had the 2 interceptions, obviously, that were not great. Nobody really got going a ton. I mean, Damian Martinez, who obviously we know from Oregon State last year, is a great running back. 14 carries, 60 yards, not terrible. Cam Ward had 10 carries for 57. So between the two of those guys, they were able to generate, somewhat of a running game. At 343 yards passing, that's still pretty damn good for Cam Ward. I've been impressed with him so far. I'm just not sure how good this Miami team is. I'm not ready to, thrust them into the playoff picture just yet.
Oh, God no. But didn't you expect when Martinez transferred from Oregon State to Miami that he would be a much bigger player? Like I literally thought 125 and a click. His best game is against FAMU, 11 for 91.
No, I'm with you. I thought he would be 100, have a couple 100-yard games by now and be leading the charge. And there's been a lot more fall on, Cam Ward's shoulders because it's just he hasn't gotten the production I kind of expected out of Martinez.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, that was a crazy ending. And obviously we got a bunch of more games to talk about. And we'll be right back after we hear a couple words from our man coverage sponsor, betus.com, America's trusted sportsbook. Check them out.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by betus.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
We are back with a Week 5 college football recap. This is Knoxville Nate. This is James Bonneville. We are breaking it down. Next, I know this is going to be painful, James, but we're going to have to talk about the Minnesota Golden Gophers. A miraculous touchdown at the end of the game. They go for the onside kick. They recover it, and there's laundry on the field. I mean, I was not surprised at all that the flag came out, but I watched the replay like 5 times, and I couldn't find the guy that was offside. So talk to me, James. What happened here with your Gophers?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you watch that game, the first half, Michigan kicked Minnesota's ass. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant are outstanding, like literally and utterly outstanding defensive tackles. Both will be playing on Sundays. Both will be drafted in the first round. They're legit. But the one thing I've seen, and this is the third time I've seen this out of Michigan, is they haven't changed what they're going to do in the second half. I mean, why even go in the locker room if you're not going to make some adjustments? And you notice halfway through the third quarter after that pick, the game flipped on a dime, and Minnesota was throwing on them at will. Daniel Jackson is a special talent at Minnesota. I go back to, quite frankly, Dragan Kasich missed a field goal in the first half, which it's PJ. He's on the right hash. I know the guy could hit from 70, maybe 75, but he's going to hook it right. I mean, it's now happened 4 times. Just address that issue. I mean, the guy will be kicking the NFL. He's got an incredible leg, but he makes that field goal. We're talking tie game with the Gophers have a chance of winning it. And the way they were throwing the ball, yeah. I mean, they without Will Johnson, you can't. Their D-backs are just not good enough. And the key is to run up tempo on them. And name me a team or two in the Big Ten that likes to go up tempo, like Ohio State, Oregon. I mean, if Grant and Graham can't get back on the field, their defense is having issues. And Will Johnson's got to be a player bigger role in that.
Yeah, and I'm just this one-dimensional thing is getting a little nutso. I mean, you throw for 86 yards on the entire night. I mean, that's not going to get it done, buddy, when you're playing another team that, can score at will. And I wasn't even blown away really by their running game yesterday. I mean, Mullins is a very good running back, and obviously their offensive line is a Michigan offensive line. But, I mean, 43 carries for 155 yards, that's 3.6 per. That's not what I expected for them to do against Minnesota. I expected them to be a little bit further along in the run game and throwing for 86 yards. I mean, this was a game that Minnesota could win, and I was devastated when they took that outside kick away from them. I'm not going to lie to you.
That was so unbelievably bad. But you look at it, the first drive, Michigan went down the field, was a 10-12 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. After that, their next two scores were both off turnovers, one after a fumble and another one off of a blocked punt. And they went in at 11 yards and 30 yards. They did not have extended drives. Alex Orji is a problem. And I don't know what they're going to do, but they got to get more creative. Offensively, and more importantly, defensively, to do something without Grant and Graham on the field. They've got to figure out ways to do creatively. I mean, Wink Martindale's a smart coach from dialing up blitzing schemes. He's got to figure out ways to dial something up without those guys in there. Otherwise, they're going to have problems. I mean, right now, this is a team I don't think it's going to hit the playoff. I really don't.
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it just yet. I mean, could they get their shit together and potentially make a run? Of course, crazier things have happened, but based on what I've seen thus far, I'm not impressed. They got beat the second half of that USC game, but they were able to come down and score, at the very end to win. I give them credit for that, but I wasn't overly, impressed with them in that game. And then, yesterday was obviously a very losable game. Talking about teams, shooting themselves in the foot, Louisville yesterday. I mean, I can't for the life of me figure out how you turn the ball over 3 times in a game like that where you're on the road against Notre Dame and expect to win. I mean, quarterback played a pretty good game. The transfer from, I don't know, what's he played at 4 schools now?
Oregon, Texas Tech. He's played everywhere, it seems like.
He's played on almost every school, but he had a pretty good game yesterday, especially breaking off that 60-yard run out of the end zone, and then he fumbles it upon being tackled around the 50, and it was kind of like after that, I'm like, man, this is not good. 3 turnovers. I mean, what did you think about Louisville's effort yesterday, and was the turnover thing kind of what cost them in your mind as well?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this may have been the sloppiest Jeff Brom coach game I've ever seen. I'm kind of blown away, to be honest with you.
360 from last year's game, bro.
I mean, he is. I don't think people realize how good a coach Jeff Brom is. I mean, what he did at Purdue was effing amazing. And look what he did in year 1 at Louisville. His alma mater. I mean, granted, every coach has their bad days, but holy crap, that was a tough one, because that's one of those games, if you win it, everybody remembers. Your boosters remember. It builds that excitement to go into a playoff, that maybe there is hope we can get to the first round, the second round, and take on the big boys and see what they can do and have that home game, get that extra money. I think this is an aberration, but we'll see next week. That's a tough loss. Tough loss. And like I said, I mean, they were moving the football all day. I mean, Tyler Shaw threw for 3 touchdowns, and, they had 173 yards on the ground, almost 270 in the air. It's not like they weren't moving the football. It's just you can't turn the ball over 3 times on the road in Notre Dame and expect to win. Yeah.
And I don't blame the coach for that. He certainly didn't fumble it once yesterday. So I'm not gonna put the loss squarely on his shoulders. The game plan was fairly solid. You can't turn the ball over 3 times on the road and expect to win. Oklahoma last week completely shredded by Tennessee. They just got physically dominated. I think they had like 13 guys that were ruled out for this game at Auburn. I'm watching the beginning, and the only offense whatsoever was the replacement quarterback who, they sat down Jackson Arnold in that Tennessee game. I'm not sure if he's going to play again after that performance. And so they went with my guy who, showed us all what he can do with that 50-yard run for a touchdown. And then it was kind of like lights off for their offense until the fourth quarter. But they came back and won a game at Auburn. Not that Auburn is good, but I do think this shows some life out of some resiliency out of the Oklahoma team by being able to come back after being down. What did you think about the Sooners' performance being down, 12 or 13 players who were out with injury?
Well, I mean, they lost their top 5 receivers were out.
Yeah.
I mean, when you lose your top 5 receivers and you're a passing team, that's pretty rough. What I go back to is Hugh Freeze. Take your head out of your freaking small intestine. And when it's 3rd and 4 and it's late in the game and you got a freaking lead and you're 43? Run the damn ball. If you don't make a first and you pick up 3, guess what? 4th and 1, you nail it, game over. Instead, what do? Let's throw the ball and watch our quarterback situation, which has been a freaking utter disaster, pick it off, and then you hear OU school song being played. I mean, quite frankly, that game was an abomination. The best hit in that game is when Oklahoma came on the field and that cheerleader clocked the freaking OU player doing did you see that doing
I did see that. Yeah, I saw it on Twitter. She was doing a back handspring and she donkey kicked somebody walking off the field.
I mean, honest to God, that was the best hit of the game. Otherwise, the game was literally unwatchable. To quote Roy Williams, it took the game back 100 years watching that game. Anybody new to football, I'm sorry, for the sake of football, that you had to experience that absolute pile of crap game.
It was pretty bad. I will give Coach Venables some credit though. He stuck with Hawkins. He went with him in this game, and that was a hell of a coaching move because without Michael Hawkins Jr., they have zero offense, James. He had 161 yards passing. He had 69 yards rushing. He had a carry. Javonte Barnes provided a little bit of help with 61 yards rushing as well. But you take Hawkins out of this game, where are the Sooners at? I mean,
well, you can't bring in Jackson Arnold because Jackson Arnold can't throw to himself.
No.
I mean, this is just an absolute – I mean, putting Oklahoma in the top 25 literally is embarrassing. All you're doing is putting the name in there. Guess what? Brian Bosworth hasn't played in 40 years.
Yeah.
40. Josh Heupel ate the Josh Heupel that's in college, and he's also in Knoxville.
Yeah, this is not a great – the offensive output from this Oklahoma team is just not good.
It's embarrassing. I mean, Texas is going to freaking motorboat them. It ain't even going to be close. Quite frankly, walk-ons could get time in the third quarter.
Yeah, I would agree. If Oklahoma's able to even make that a game, I will be shocked because they're beat up and they're not that good when they're fully healthy. So I don't see them giving any type of trouble to the Texas Longhorns, especially after the way that Texas fought back. They struggled a little bit at the beginning of the game against Mississippi State, but then, came out and throttled them in the second half and took control. Another team that struggled a little bit yesterday was USC. The beginning of the game was not going as planned. Wisconsin was actually winning, and USC had to fight back. It did 38-21 was the final. That the game was a lot closer than that, in my opinion. Don't you agree, James, that Wisconsin put it up?
I disagree, honestly.
Yeah.
It literally, they just made USC just made really dumb mistakes. Like that punt return, that was a fumble. It was just like, what the hell? I look at this Wisconsin team, and I thought the Luke Fickell hire was going to be masterful. Like, this was going to be a transformative move for Wisconsin. And I've watched them quite a few games this year, and it's not like they're bad, but they're not good. Like, there's nobody on their team that like scares the crap out of me. Their offensive line and defensive line, which was always a mainstay of that program, really looks like they're just going through the motions. And USC, I mean, let's be honest, their receiving core outside of a certain one in Columbus, Ohio, is probably the best in the country. Oh, I'll take that, or Eugene, Oregon, probably third.
I like Ryan Williams a lot in Alabama as well.
Yeah, but there's Ryan Williams and who? Kobe Prentice. I mean, there's a drop off there.
He's pretty good though.
No questions asked. But I mean, as far as depth, I mean, Zach Branch. I mean, you go down that list. USC, they kind of manhandled Wisconsin, especially in the air. I mean, those cornerbacks looked like they were just flailing around out there like they were playing high school freshman football. And it just, you saw the second half, Wisconsin didn't have an answer for anything. Like, they just kept doing the same thing over and over again and thinking it was something different was going to change. They don't have the Jimmies and Joes. And there's guys on that roster from a athleticism standpoint that should be playing on Sundays, but they don't look it.
Yeah, they were all fired up about, who they added through the portal and have actually been recruiting fairly well, to boot. So
yeah,
I expected more out of this Wisconsin team, and they've kind of just been blah. They did fight hard in the first half, but as you mentioned, the second half they took over 9 different receivers. Miller Moss was able to hit, in the second half, and I've got to give Miller Moss a lot of credit. This guy's coming in replacing Caleb Williams, who won a Heisman Trophy, and everybody loved him at USC. Whether they should have or not, that's to be debated. But this guy was, they retired number 13 and talked about how great he was. And this guy stepped in and replaced him pretty admirably. What do you think about Miller Moss, and what have you seen out of him since taking over for Williams?
Honestly, the thing that impresses me most about Arch Manning is he doesn't lock on to certain receivers. There's a diversification and a spreading of the wealth, which makes it harder for DCs to prep against them. Is he the most athletic quarterback? No, but honestly, you look back at him, and I'm really impressed with. I'm really impressed with how he sees the field. Do I think he's the next level? Guy can play on Sundays? No, but he's better than Jackson Dart.
I think he's better than a lot of people. And, there was a lot of pressure on him coming in this season. How will this guy do? Should they play, a youngster? This guy kind of paid his dues and waited for his turn. And that run he had yesterday where he got hit and he spun, and then he did a kind of a helicopter into the end zone. That from a guy who's not really a running quarterback, I thought that was pretty sweet and was pretty impressed with that.
I think Jacoby Lane, though, is a very special talent. Like, he reminds me a lot of Mike Williams, going back to the Pete Carroll era. I think more athletic, but there was a corner route that he literally mossed the receiver so well on a touchdown. It was really impressive watching him. And then there was an out of bound third down. He literally his knee is like maybe 2 inches off the ground, and he's just sitting there waiting for the ball. And there's no way the cornerback could even grab it. He defended off the DB so well that it was really impressive. So, honestly, people, if you haven't had a chance, watch Jacoby Lane. Incredible talent. He was out of Red Mountain High School out of Mesa, Arizona, which, Arizona's been producing guys every time. So,
yeah, there's no doubt. And another kid that impressed me a lot yesterday, been doing it all year. I know they had the one hiccup, but Kansas State hanging on and beating Oklahoma State. They gave up a lot of yards, but this K-State offense, was able to put touchdowns on the board. Avery Johnson, obviously, who I'm talking about, he threw 3 touchdowns. He also ran 2. Pretty special when you're accounting for 5 touchdowns yourself. What do you think about this kid, and where's Kansas State at now, going 4-1 after the victory over Oklahoma State yesterday?
Well, I look back at the BYU game, and this is just a great bounce back for them. I mean, the BYU game, I think that overwhelmed them quite a bit. They couldn't punch the ball in on those first two drives and had to settle for field goals, and then turnovers, and everything went sideways. And you look now against Oklahoma State, who's a good program. I mean, let's be honest, they're there every single time in the second half of the year. But K-State needed this game if they're going to play for a Big 12 title, and they pulled it off. And now their schedule, you look on the way out, they play all the right games at home. Their road games at West Virginia, at Iowa State are going to be tough. But Avery Johnson is probably the best quarterback I've seen in Kansas State ever, honestly. And that's saying a lot when you have Colin Klein and Mike Bishop. This guy provides a really interesting dynamic, but not only that, you still got Dylan Edwards and DJ Gideons at running back too as well. They're going to be a very formidable team to beat, and I think you're going to see them against Utah or BYU in that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, BYU is looking tough right now, but I'm a pretty good believer on Kansas State at this point. As you mentioned, DJ Giddens yesterday went for 187 yards, averaged 12.5 per carry. You couple that with a dynamic quarterback, and you're going to have some pretty good looks on offense. And I was impressed. They were able to get stops at times. Jacob Parrish was all over the field making tackles on K-State's defense, and looked like a team that can definitely contend for the Big 12 title. I mean, I know BYU's undefeated, but K-State still looks like a team that'll be there at the end. Is there anybody else in the Big 12 that scares you at all and thinks might be able to sneak into that title race, or are those the teams that you're kind of sticking with at this point?
I'm sticking with those three, honestly. I mean, there were possibilities, but it seems like everything's gone sideways for those teams. I think BYU, I mean, you look at their schedule, they still got to go at UCF, at Utah. Those are going to be interesting games. I mean, Utah Civil War rivalry, that's going to be a very tough game for them, even when they're having an 0-12 season, because rivalry games throw the records out the window. It's playing for blood.
Yeah, I mean, BYU scared me a little bit yesterday with their performance against Baylor. Obviously they had 2 interceptions that cost them. The 34-28 was not really what I expected.
Well, they got up on them early. And the part that bothered me with BYU is they only scored 3 points in the second half. They kind of mailed it in. And they can't mail a game like that in. They got to put their foot on someone's throat and choke them out.
I agree. And you can't, especially a team like Baylor, who's, got nothing to lose, already having been, lost 2 ball games. I mean, they had nothing to lose and were going to pull out all the stops in the second half, and they did. But BYU was able to hang on. They're now 5-0, ranked 22nd. I don't know how much they'll move up after that game. Probably a few spots, but
yeah,
I think they're about right. Don't you? I put them right around 20.
Yeah. I think the biggest jump back is going to be Ole Miss, and the question is, where do you put them? I think you got to put them behind 15. I thought 6 was lunacy. But now, who's going to be number 1? I mean, Texas.
My take.
Yeah. I mean, there are 5 writers that will not take Ohio State off that. Yeah. But mark my words, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama jumps Texas.
I wouldn't either. And I think maybe they should. You beat Georgia. And the way they did, I mean, I know it was close at the end, but they were up 28-0, and that was pretty impressive. And the way they were able to hang on at the end, I give a lot of credit. That was the biggest win of the college football season thus far.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I'm not ready to put, my Buckeyes at number 1 yet, even though I'd love to see them there. I need to see them put it all together. Yesterday's game against Michigan State was a little sloppy at times. But when you have Jeremiah Smith, you're going to be all right. I mean, you can just – Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith are the 2 best wide receivers in the country. I do like the McMillan kid from Arizona as well. But you're talking about 2 freshmen who can make any play and are just essentially unguardable. They're pretty legitimate. And when we talk about legit, Ashton Gianti, the running back for Boise State. Good Lord. 26 carries, 259 yards, 4 touchdowns yesterday against a 4-0 Washington State team. Number 25 Boise State beats them 45-24. How good is Boise State? And you know, how good is this kid? I mean, I think you have to put him up in the Heisman race at this point, don't you?
Yes. Yes, you do. Now, I mean, everything's become so quarterback centric, but I look at this kid from a running situation. This kid is just next level, like absolutely next level.
He's the best running back I've seen all year.
Oh, by far. Like I couldn't even. Putting somebody number 2 makes it look like it's actually close.
Yeah,
it's like it should be 1, and the next person should be at like 15. There is such a gap between these two. I mean, shit. In 5 games, he has got 845 yards, 13 touchdowns, and averaging, that's right, 10.3 a carry. He's averaging a first freaking down.
Well, he's averaging 10 yards a carry, and it's not like he's carried the ball 10 times. He's got 82 carries, and he's averaging 10 yards a carry. I mean, he's got long play potential. He's scored an 80-yard touchdown. As you mentioned, he's hit the end zone 13 times. This guy is good enough to carry this team pretty far, and I think he's the best running back in the country by far. And I hope that we can see him play, in this playoff. So,
he would cause problems, major league problems for a lot of teams. I mean, it's because and I know whoever the group of 5 team is, they become the Cinderella, and everybody wants the Cinderella to knock off somebody.
Yeah, and there's going to be, it's like the basketball tournament. Everybody's cheering for the underdog.
Yeah,
and then wondering why the big name teams aren't playing at the end after they cheer those on. Let's go a little bit here towards next week and talk about the Week 6 matchups that we're looking for. By the way, Army and Navy are both 4-0. In case anyone missed it, we got both service academies on the schedule going 4-0.
By the way, do you know the last time they were both 4-0?
Yeah.
World War II
1945, I believe, was the last time. That was when the Four Horsemen were there.
World War II was going on. Let's just say, for probably everyone that's watching our show right now, you weren't alive. And if you are, God, thank you so much for supporting us.
Yes. No, my grandfather he's 96. So he definitely was around for that one. But looking ahead, this next week, Missouri, Texas A&M, 11 versus 24. If that's the highlight game, we're in big trouble. Clemson's going to play Florida State. So, I'm sure they marked that one down as a marquee matchup, but I'm not really seeing it. You got Tennessee, Arkansas, Michigan versus Washington. What is there any game that you're actually looking forward to watching? I mean, I think Iowa, Ohio State will be a better game than advertised. Auburn, Georgia, I guess it'll be interesting to see Georgia bounce back, but I don't know, James.
How is Miami Cal the college game day game?
I don't know.
I heard that and I'm like, really? Miami Cal? I mean, it's there's nothing that's exciting about this next week. I mean, Missouri, Texas A&M. How is Texas A&M still ranked in the top 25?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Honest to God, that's embarrassing. Like literally, A&M, you struggle to beat Bowling Green, Arkansas, Florida. I mean, wow! Congratulations, you boat race McNeese State. What is Northwestern State and Louisiana on the schedule next week too as well? I mean, you look at the SEC, there are 4 really good teams, 2 teams that could be better but aren't. And then there's like another grouping that's like 6-6 in every conference, and then a bunch of crap at the end. And holy crap, that's the problem I have with like an Ole Miss, is they could potentially 9-3, 10-2, beat nobody and make the playoff.
Yeah.
And just get boat raced.
I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but
I hope it doesn't either, but that's the way it's looking. Because
hey, you know what? I would not be shocked. We didn't mention this game, but Ole Miss plays South Carolina next week.
Oh, I know.
We did talk about their upcoming schedule, but we didn't really talk about that game. But I would not be surprised if South Carolina was able to win that one, especially it being in Columbia and being a home game for the Gamecocks.
And those fans there are rabid. I mean, they're freaking nuts.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, kudos to Jalen Milroe. One of my favorite players, and definitely a kid that is on his way to, eternal glory after yesterday, running all over the field and throwing all over the field on the Georgia Bulldog defense. Was pretty impressive.
Completion percentage, 83%.
Yeah, for a guy who they benched last year and sat down after the third game. So pretty impressed with him.
Heisman Trophy front runner right now. Mark it
down. No doubt. I've got him number one in my book as well. Until somebody else comes along and takes it, I got to put Jalen Milroe out in front at this point.
Ashton Jonte, number 2. After that, who cares?
Yeah, no, those are the two front runners in my opinion. I mean, I know people are clamoring for Travis Hunter, but not on this show, bro. Jalen Milroe is the real deal, and until somebody takes it from him, he's winning the award in my book.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back. Obviously, not the greatest slate of games next week, but we will be here to break them down, and maybe there'll be a couple upsets or something interesting that we can comment on. But until then, thanks for tuning in today, and catch us next week. Same time, same channel. James, keep your chin up. Talk to you real soon.
Later.
Later, Wayne.